Hello, I am Juan Esteban Gallego Cano, and this is Formal and Informal Assessment. This is for the course Multimedia Tools 2019 second semester at Universidad Tecnológica de Pereira. When it comes to teaching and assessing, teachers have two main ways of doing so. Number one, formal assessment, and on the other hand, we have informal assessment. As we will see, these two ways of assessing students and their learning processes are quite different. As formal assessment says, it has a structure and is very formal, while informal assessment is not that structured and is not that formal at all. So, as I mentioned before, these two ways of assessing students, formal versus informal assessment, have different characteristics. Number one, in the case of formal assessment, it has data which supports the conclusions made from the tests. So teachers have data that allow them to provide conclusions made from the scores that the students got. As well, formal assessment uses standardized measures or tests, and the statistics support the conclusions obtained, such as a student has failed or not. As well, in formal assessment, scores are percentiles or standard scores. It is designed to provide evidence about a student's learning. And finally, formal assessment is used to compare students before others. So, in conclusion, formal assessment is used to give teachers opportunities to compare students before students based on statistics and make conclusions from their learning process based on percentiles or standard scores. While in the case of informal assessment, it is not data-driven but content and performance-driven. As well, in the case of informal assessment, it is used to inform instruction, and it is not used to compare students, but to assess their learning process throughout all the process. It means it is a holistic way of assessing students, and it is done in the classroom environment. It is done spontaneously by the teacher, and is free in its design. It as well indicates how well specific tasks are performed, and the evidence is collected during daily activities. So as you can see here, these characteristics differentiate very deeply how formal and informal assessments are, and that they show that these two ways of looking over the process of learning of students are different. While in the case of formal assessment, we have the opportunity to give conclusions based on data. In the case of informal assessment, we don't. So, here we have some examples of formal assessment. As formal assessment is attached to strict testing procedures and measurements, it can take the form of summative or final tests, quizzes, portfolios, chapter tests, or even graded homework. It is very structured as you can see here. Nonetheless, in the case of informal assessment, this can take the form of note-taking, think, pair, share activities, dialogues, group or partner work, tutorial discussions, or even oral reflections. So in conclusion, these two ways of assessing students and their learning processes are very different. So they can have different perspectives to analyze the same process, while in formal assessment we have very structured and standardized tests or instruments of assessing students. In the case of informal assessments, teachers don't. So, thank you for your time. This was Juan Esteban Gallego Cano with Formal and Informal Assessment presentation.